It's with pleasure that I bring on James Vallee and James Rule and Scott Minett, and we're going to be talking about a really interesting panel at this moment. Valhil Capital, Astro Media have done an amazing job in creative. If you want to step out of the mindset that we currently have, listen to this next panel on how they have taken traditional business models, introduced them to a new asset class, introduced them to new technology infrastructure, and changed businesses around, whether it's capitalization through Valhil Capital, whether it's the media through Astrolight Media Group, or whether it's how do you use advanced technologies to make traditional businesses better. So I'm going to bring it up, James and Scott and James. Start with a little bit of who you are, your background, a little bit about your company. So set the stage for our listeners here, and I'll pop in with questions every so often just to provide some context. So James Vallee, Scott Minett, and James Rule. The floor is yours. Thank you so much for attending.
Beautiful. Can you hear us okay, Kareem?
Perfectly.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for Link2 for having us on. This is truly an exciting thing for us. We've listened to several of the panels today, which have really been excellent, getting us super excited about rolling into the next year. I also want to really thank Link2 for this most recent XRP rebate process they're doing for investing in securities with XRP. And not so much for the rebate, but really the statement that came out, I think Joe made it from Link2 about your support of the XRP community. And it's that type of leadership I think we really need more of in this new asset sector. So congratulations on that. That was very meaningful for us. So I'm Jimmy Vallee. I'm the managing director of Valhil Capital. Valhil is a family investment firm located in Houston, Texas. Scott Minett here is the president of the firm, and James Rule is our partner in a media business that you alluded to, Kareem, called Astrolight Media Group. So that's our panel membership today. A little bit about Valhil Capital is we were, first of all, I was a corporate securities lawyer in big law for a little over 20 years, doing public company M&A deals, mostly for large oil and gas companies. So public company in M&A, securities offerings, SPACs, master limited partnerships, all this type of corporate structuring and deal structuring, and a lot of private equity as well is what I did kind of professionally for many, many years. Separately from that, my family, which is made up of valleys and hills, basically had a family investment office where we invested in very traditional type businesses. We invested in real estate assets. We invested in we have a home improvement business. We have a fitness brand in Houston. So it was these types of things. We were very traditional private equity model. Go in, buy a cash flowing business, improve the brand, improve the capital structure, improve operations, get really top quality management. And then, as you improve the capital structure, improve the financial performance of the business, hopefully you get to have a successful exit one day. For us, that's typically in the M&A markets, although we do have some kind of just cash flowing coupon type investments. One of the benefits we have as a family investment firm is that we're not kind of on the treadmill of having to exit a business every 3 to 5 years as more traditional private equity that is managing a bunch of funds have to do. We can have super long time horizons. We can be very patient with our investments and very strategic for how we go about things. So that's a little bit about the firm. how we got into this brave new world of digital assets is kind of not unlike some of the people featured in Matthew's investor profile that he just went through. When the pandemic hit in the spring of 2020, it was very clear to us that kind of everything had changed. If you looked at our fitness brand, Southern Flow Yoga here in Houston, we had to shut down for, I think, 3 months. So we immediately had to start thinking about how do you become more digital? How do you start streaming classes? How do you get clients and customers to start participating in a digital platform, which was really a physical type business? And it was in the context of that we really stumbled onto digital assets and blockchain. Being a Gen Xer, I lived through the internet boom. In fact, some partners and I lived out in California earlier in my career. I was an engineer, and we actually had the internet back in 91, 92. And so we experienced that whole thing. We would, read Wired magazine, and we actually were involved in doing CD-ROM games around that time and all kinds of stuff. But the thing that was really profound about that time was we had access to information that a lot of business professionals did not have because we had access to the internet. Obviously, the 90s developed, the adoption of that starts in kind of the mid 90s. We go into the internet boom of the late 90s. That's around the time that I actually left engineering and ended up going to law school and becoming a corporate securities lawyer. So looking back on that time, we always knew that if we ever saw a total paradigm shift occurring in the macroeconomic environment, we would want to really go all in. And that's what we have seen in this movement to digital assets with the constant money printing that's occurring by the central banks and governments. And then they really gave it a big time steroid shot starting in the spring of 2020 after the crash occurred in all markets in kind of March, April 2020. We knew that real assets were going to substantially appreciate in value. And, we also recognized that here was this new asset class that didn't exist in kind of prior situations. If you go back to the 2008, 2009 crisis, this asset class did not exist as an off-ramp to go and start, integrating into business and developing business systems around. But here was this new digital asset world, and we could start doing that. So immediately we started to look at ways that we could bring about the adoption in our own businesses of these asset classes, or of these new assets. So the first thing we did was we basically adopted a treasury policy, not unlike Michael Saylor talks about, that we would hold in our portfolio investments, we would hold all excess cash. That's cash not needed forward 30 days. So we would basically only keep in fiat what was needed for the next 30 days. And we would keep everything else in digital assets. The thesis, the investment thesis was very simple. You had the US dollar, which had at that point lost, I think, 96 to 98% of its value since 1913. So it's on a macro descent to zero. And then you have these digital assets, which were basically, if you looked at it on the macro, doing quite the opposite. And we knew that as the digital assets started to become adopted and realized and more value came to the market, they were going to stair step in value. So the reason we wanted to be in the digital assets as opposed to fiat is so when those stair steps in value occurred, we would participate in the increase in value. So that's how the journey begins, as kind of a treasury function. And, it was very difficult during those times, as I think everybody can appreciate on this call, to talk to your business executives and say, this is what you're going to start doing. I know you've always done it this other way, but you're going to start doing it this way. And, initially quite a bit of resistance, but over time, they began to really come along and adopt that, philosophy. Such now we've basically fully integrated. We kind of look at ourselves as living in the new world already.
Right.
I don't know if you have something to add to.
Well, that's really where the journey started, but then we kind of started taking it steps further and looking at our businesses and going, okay, well, how do we stay in digital assets? And how do we use these digital assets within the plumbing of our businesses? And that's really kind of how that journey happened from, originally an investment in Bitcoin, an investment in Ethereum, and then moving a little bit further down the line to an XRP and more of these utility tokens where we, could use them for payment mechanisms and really use them throughout our businesses. Like the prime example is really our commodities trading business. So we trade physical commodities globally, and we have a lot of business we do in Africa and into the UK. And, we had sent a wire through, one of the big banks to one of our partners in the UK, and about 2 weeks later, they still hadn't received the wire. So, we're calling the bank, trying to figure out what's going on. They're saying, oh, it's lost. Sorry about that. Maybe we can, you want us to reinitiate that wire. And we told them, hang on a second. We called our partner in the UK and said, hey, how about we get you that money here in about 3 seconds for no fee? And they said, all right, let's give it a go. And literally before we finished the sentence, they got their money, and they thought it was pretty amazing. And that helped with, a counterparty, right? Now a business counterparty that's now engaging us in the digital asset. And we've just been constantly moving down that path of getting the other businesses that we work with, right? We've plumbed our businesses. Now we've moved to these other businesses and getting our business partners to engage with us in the digital assets as well. And, they're seeing all kinds of benefits themselves from doing that too. So it's been great for everybody, who's engaged with us in this new world that we've gone ahead and lived in.
In the spring and summer of 2020 is when we start to learn about the Link2s of the world and the iTrust Capitals and the Upholds. And it was really cool as we were, taking funds and rolling more and more into these, into just holding the digital assets, to be really like meeting the CEOs of these other businesses and entrepreneurs in the space who are all at ground zero at the same time. That's really what led us to meeting James. So James, why don't you tell them a little bit about how you got here?
Sure. Hey, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you good.
Okay, good deal. Kareem, I want to thank you and the team at Link2 for having us and let us, tell our story to the public, to accredited investors, to businesses, how we are incorporating blockchain technology and digital assets into our everyday business. A little background about myself. I was born and raised in Southeast Texas, a little town called Lumberton, Texas, down here in the Golden Triangle. I went to college for a couple of years, Lamar University, and then I ventured into the Coca-Cola bottling company here in Southeast Texas. I was in sales. I became a supervisor. I kind of worked my way up the ranks. And at the same time, as Jimmy expressed before, I grew up in the days of the internet with the first emails, the first web pages. And back then, it was mysterious and exciting at the same time. So 17 years at Coca-Cola, some buddies of mine had mentioned to me that, hey, have you heard about the oil field? And I said, well, no, I haven't heard about the oil field. And in 2008, the oil and gas industry was booming at the time. So I made a decision to leave Coca-Cola and go to West Texas and sling the 16-pound sledgehammer in West Texas, which I'd never done before, but now I know how to do it. And it was a learning experience. The money was good. It was an opportunity to take care of my family and make a little bit more money. You know, that's what we're all here for, to learn about new ways of making more money and taking care of future generations of family. So as I was in the oil field, I had a little bit of time on my hands. So I started researching other ways to make money. And I found Bitcoin. Believe it or not, Bitcoin was my first investment in 2017. I'd heard of it before. I've always been a techie. I invested in Bitcoin. 2017 was a monumental time for me because I landed a local plant job as an operator in Southeast Texas. 2017, all my friends, all my buddies worked in refineries, and that's where it was. You work shift work, you get to go home every night, every day. Unfortunately, in 2020, April of 2020, after the pandemic being the last one in, I was the first one out. I got laid off. I got furloughed. I got, pretty much screwed by the system. And at that time, I had been researching digital assets and cryptocurrencies, and I actually followed digital asset investor Brad Kimes, all the others in the crypto community. And in April of 2020, I decided to mysteriously create this YouTube channel, which I had no idea what I was doing. If you go back to my first videos, you could see the cheesiness of the first videos I created. But, after about a week or so, I realized that I had 10 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I couldn't believe it. I had 10 people who were subscribed to my YouTube channel, and I was blown away at the time. But, anytime you pursue something and you feel in your heart that you're doing the right thing, the best thing to do is just to push through, get all the kinks out, do what you were meant to do. And now I consider myself a worldwide cryptocurrency teacher. I have followers on Twitter, over 100,000 followers on Twitter, which I'm just totally blown away. But being a crypto teacher and a content creator, every day there's so many rabbit holes to jump into, and there's so much information out there that I'm actually sharing with the world. And based on a 20-minute YouTube video, I have to be real particular about what I'm talking about. It has to be honest. It has to be truthful. None of it's financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm a crypto teacher. So let's move ahead to July of 2020. July of 2020, Jimmy Vallee contacted me. I think it was on Twitter Messenger. He sent me a message and said, James, I'd like to talk to you. And I didn't know who Jimmy was at the time. So I contacted Jimmy. We talked. He told me that he really enjoyed my YouTube videos. And in one video in particular, I was talking about digital assets. I was talking about the laws of attraction, which I'm 100% into the laws of attraction. You put it out to the universe, it comes back to you. And the laws of attraction brought Jimmy Vallee, the managing director of Valhil Capital, to me. And he brought me to Jimmy Vallee. I didn't know who Jimmy was. I Googled him, and come to find out, I was like, oh crap, Jimmy Vallee is like the top M&A oil and gas lawyer in the country. Wow. It's amazing how many people you meet. But getting back to that, I built a relationship with Jimmy. I met Scott. I met Mark, some other business partners. And at the time, Jimmy had mentioned to me that he needed some help maybe getting this yoga business out to the masses, because COVID, or the pandemic, caused the yoga business to crater because nobody could get out. Everybody was locked in. So I got with Jimmy, and a video clip was attached to all my YouTube videos. And it's funny because the community was asking me, okay, are you a crypto teacher or a yoga instructor? So we had to reevaluate that. But that was my pretty much my foot in the door with Jimmy Vallee and our partnership that we created. Move on to October 2020. Astrolight Media Group. I'm now the CEO of Astrolight Media Group. We are a next gen media company that is bringing all of the different aspects of blockchain technology, as well as cryptocurrency, digital assets, all the new things involved. And it's amazing because I'm cash poor. This is not financial advice. Jimmy had mentioned I Trust Capital, linked to all of these other phenomenal companies that are investment opportunities. And if you're an accredited investor and you have a business and you're not looking at these underlying ecosystems, this blockchain technology, you're missing out. I mean, we're hedging against the dollar. We're taking this digital technology and looking to the future, as well as Astrolight Media Group, a media company. We're looking at the future of blockchain technology, and we're just now breaking the tip of the iceberg. So it's phenomenal, not only to be a crypto teacher and educator, but to also be the CEO of a growing company that is going to be next generation blockchain technology news.
Scott, what do you, what was your vision from a Valhil perspective of getting and partnering with James and getting involved in a media type platform?
Yeah, right. Well, for an family investment office and for where we wanted to kind of take this, you know, we saw having a media arm as being something important that we could utilize down the line. And, you know, obviously our journey kind of began with James and DAI and Brad Kimes and the guys watching their videos, and they were educating us. So we knew it was something we wanted to kind of push further. And obviously the conversation with James went really well. We found a digital media group out of Austin. We made an acquisition there, brought James in as a CEO, and we've done some replumbing of that company and moved Astrolight to where we think this is all going to go, right? We think, I mean, if you go look at the number of views from a lot of the YouTube influencers in the space, you'll see where their numbers are compared to where traditional media is. And we think that the underlying current of all that has to do with transparency and truth, and a lot of the aspects that the blockchain is really bubbling up. And you combine that with what's happening in politics and in the macro environment right now, the distrust of everything. We just think it's really important. And I think that's really what pushed us in this direction to do this. And, you know, I think right now we're just kind of at the beginning of Astrolight. You know, we're doing some things on the back end to make it kind of next generation, you know, media company. And then we'll do some of the roll up and other activities that we're looking to do down the line that will bring a lot of weight behind Astrolight.
Yeah, it's really amazing to look at the future. You know, when you integrate blockchain technology into a media company, and, you know, individuals that are, you know, integrating into the media company with digital wallets, you know, making purchases with digital assets, and maybe looking at a world of metaverse where you can actually view your news within the metaverse. I mean, who knows? The sky's the limit for us, not only being in today, but, you know, what is tomorrow going to bring us? It's hard to fathom how massive this business is going to be.
If I can interject a little bit here. So what's amazing is this, is we met James here at Link2 a while back, maybe 18 months, 24 months ago. And what you just said, James, resonates so strongly. It's like education, right? Education, going out there and talking to people, having done some due diligence and expressing your feelings, not being a financial advisor. Just look, I'm a regular guy. This is what I'm interested in, and this is what I do, and this is what I'm saying. It's up to you to do your due diligence and move forward. And then listening to James and Scott and how they've taken the advent of the new technologies, combined it with your media solution with a backbone of digital assets, and created a dynamic environment for traditional businesses, how you've been able to do that so quickly and show the great results that you've already done is pretty amazing. And that sort of pertains to, like, I know you guys were here for a lot of the panels before, of how things are changing in this environment, how society is coming together, how people are coming together to make differences that we can all see. And each one of us is contributing to that difference. Rather than other people making differences for us, we're making a difference for everybody, which is amazing. What I would like for you to share, James and Scott, a little bit more on is a little bit more detail on how you've taken a traditional business, the oil and gas business, in a little bit more detail on how you walk them through what you did for your own business. You took your traditional business and you created a dynamic business. So, and I haven't been to Texas, so
Well, we welcome you.
Oh, thank you. I opened it up for you, and I appreciate the invite. But just give us a little bit more of a rundown on how what was, when you first introduced this to your one of your portfolio companies, it says, hey, we're going to change your business model. Some company that's been doing businesses for 10 to 15 years in a certain way. What happened at that point? How did you change it? What was the reaction?
So I think that's a really good segue to talk about Delta Wave Energy, which is a portfolio company of Valhil. It's the OS is what's displayed behind Scott and I here today. But as you said, all three of us really, but probably because we live in Texas, we were participants in the oil and gas industry for many, many years. And so as you started to think of a business that you could really have an impact in, because you've got the relationships, you got the know-how, the knowledge, and all that, oil and gas was kind of an obvious choice for us. And so what we focused on, again, this is probably because, you're talking to the corporate securities lawyer, right? It is to focus on how can you improve the oil and gas business and make it even more efficient? And so initially, what we focused on is the accounting cycle of the oil and gas business, and specifically the midstream business. Most people probably don't know about the main three sectors, but you basically have, you got the production side, the E&P side, so that's what we call upstream. You got the transmission, which is basically taking the hydrocarbons from the wellhead and moving them to the market. That's we call the midstream. And then you got the refining, selling at the gas station, taken to the burner tip at the house. That's the downstream. So we focused on the middle part of that section because that's where all the payment action is really happening. And the normal traditional accounting cycle in the midstream business is about 90 to 120 days. So the way it works is a service is rendered, let's say at the beginning of January, okay? And then you get to the beginning of February, and that's when the kind of end of the month January closing process occurs, okay? And you've got your accountants doing the adjustments and the true ups and all that kind of stuff. And then hopefully by the 10th day of February, they get the invoices out to the customers. Invoices gone out. Now your best customer is going to pay within 30 days. So now we're already what? 50 days, right, something like that, but beyond when the service was rendered. Your best customer is going to pay, in that kind of 60-day time frame, but most customers aren't going to pay till actually they've held the invoice for 60 days. So now you're in this 90 going to 120 days. So we looked at, okay, what's going on in this business, right? And we identified that there's effectively two layers at play. There's an operational layer. Let's call that the physical layer, right? And at the physical layer, the midstream business is actually quite efficient. What I mean by that, molecules of hydrocarbons are produced and taken to market. They're going across meters. The data is registering in real time, and the systems are in place at the physical operational level to make all that happen pretty efficiently, okay? So where's the breakdown coming? Well, you stepped up to the accounting layer, all right? So now the data's coming in from what is physically happening in the world, And that's where the breakdowns begin. First of all, you got counterparties in a contract that have their own accounting system. So there's a silo created there. You've got the time frames that it takes for the accountants to do the true ups and adjustments and, you know, make sure that this meter was working and all that type of stuff. So we said, how can we leverage this blockchain technology, digital assets even, to streamline this process? So we actually, we partnered up with a really phenomenal development group out of Dallas called Nexus Cognitive, who've basically been our partners in Delta Wave. In fact, one of their partners is on the board of Delta Wave. And basically we went through a discovery phase, and it was, okay, first of all, we want to basically employ this fintech, this blockchain solution in this midstream business, right? So we need to find out, does the technology exist to be able to incorporate it? What would be the best assets to use? You know, is there going to be a bunch of resistance in the legacy oil and gas business about adopting this type of technology? To everyone's surprise, the fintech was all there. Like when we went out into the discovery phase, all of the blockchain technology, the predictive analytics, all of the things necessary to basically take this accounting function as close to real time as possible was already in existence, right? So we basically have moved forward with developing what we call the Delta Wave OS, which is a digital layer that's going to sit on top of the accounting layer, okay? And it's going to track the data being created by the operational layer in real time. And then to the extent we have constituents, so parties participating in our ecosystem, we can move the value in as close to real time as possible. So we've succeeded in doing that. And then the happy coincidence, the happy thing happened, which we really didn't set out to solve. And that is, we realized that we were actually tracking carbon in real time as it was being produced. And we had the ability with blockchain to publish that to a public blockchain and have it be auditable by a third party. To our knowledge right now, this side of the carbon offset economy does not exist. You've got a very reluctant legacy oil and gas business that is kind of doing the bare minimum needed to bring forth carbon neutrality. You've got a pretty robust developed carbon offset, major industrial projects that are environmental projects, rainforest development, you know, more efficient machines and systems being used that can bring down the carbon production of a given oil and gas business. You've got that side. You've even got that side that's already being tokenized. So the carbon credits, the carbon offsets are being tokenized. What you didn't have was what we believe Delta Wave is going to supply, which is the auditable carbon production, okay? So at this point, what we will have is publicly available, completely transparent carbon production published to a public blockchain that then is, through partnering with carbon offset and tokenized carbon credits, the ability to have the first oil and gas operation on planet Earth that actually offsets all its carbon. So that's probably the best case, you know, the clearest example of showing how we integrated, you use this technology to integrate and ended up coming up with something that we didn't expect, but is, we believe, going to be really transformative to the industry.
So this is, first of all, that's a fascinating story. A happy bunch of accidents that produced something that sounds pretty phenomenal.
Well, Kareem, you know, I think what we really figured out, right, is that what's happening is by utilizing the blockchain, we're containerizing the data as the molecules are coming out of the ground, and then we were able to attach a value to that container, right? And so now we've got all the data, and that's what's creating this data layer for the oil and gas industry, because the way the oil and gas industry is made up is lots and lots of small groups who sit in their own silos who generate their own data, right? So nobody talks to each other. So that's what creates all the friction in the market. There's no trust to anybody's data. And what we understand and what we've come to understand over time is that what the blockchain is doing for everybody is creating trust in this trustless environment. So we're all operating off the same one truth. And that's kind of goes back to the whole ethos of everything we're doing. So we know this is where the oil and gas market and all markets are going to move, is to this single data layer. And so that's what Delta Wave is here to do. And you asked, kind of how do we implement this thing? At first, when we were first kind of thinking about this, we were thinking of it as a software, but
Software as a service.
Software as a service. And the oil and gas industry lags other industries, especially fintech type industries, by decades, right? So all you're going to run into is resistance. So that's what really led us, we don't do well with resistance. We typically find ways to work around that. And so, we have the talent here at Valhil and the know-how to kind of just step beyond that, and we'll just start acquiring. That's really what happened is we just, we'll just start acquiring systems and companies and putting them on the blockchain ourselves. So we've set out.
If you can't beat them, you might as well buy them.
Right. And so we've set out to bring in some of the best, executives in the space and build a board that, has, fintech and traditional oil and gas, and bring it together and say, you know what, this is what we're going to do. And take everybody out of their silos and bring it into one layer and just roll this thing out. Because, you look at what's happening macro in the world right now. I mean, we've had these energy crisis, you have governments who are coming after the oil and gas industry. They see the oil and gas industry as a terrible, bad thing because of the carbon output. But we also know as human beings, oil and gas is not going anywhere for at least a few decades. So we have to deal with it. And we thought the best way of dealing with it is at least making the carbon transparent and making the offsets of that carbon 100% auditable, so that the regulators, the bodies that are looking at this, it's not just PR, right? It's actual real proof, so that everybody can kind of get what they need out of this.
That's pretty. So tell me, we've got a couple of minutes left. So I'm going to ask James and then Scott, give me a prediction for 2022. What do you believe, James, is going to be the most seismic prediction for 2022 in your mind?
Well, I agree with Matthew that we're at an inflection point. I mean, every investor participating in this call, if you're a business owner and you are not going headlong into plumbing your businesses and restructuring your businesses in a way to take advantage of this total paradigm shift in how value is communicated and transferred, you are going to be left behind. So I believe 2022 is going to be a year of massive adoption. Obviously, the CBDCs are coming very, very fast. Seems like on a daily basis, there's a new announcement by a country that they've already launched their CBDC or they're in the final stages of studying it. This is all in the backdrop of what we very firmly believe is the death of the petrodollar in the global economy. It's already been mentioned that China has launched its digital currency. Russia and the Middle East have come up with military arrangements where the Middle East does not have to solely rely on the US for military support, which was the entire underpinnings of the petrodollar. And you're basically seeing countries that are tired of being, strong-armed by the US government with sanctions just by having the privilege of using the US dollar. So, I predict at the same time you're having massive adoption, not only from the investment community, and this is the institutional investment community, and businesses like ours, you're also going to see the rise of these central bank digital currencies and a need for those things to be able to communicate and be interoperable. So it's going to be a big year.
Thank you. That's a big prediction. Scott?
Well, I definitely agree with that. I think this is going to be kind of the year where adoption kind of does move from that 5 to 10%, and we start moving up to 40, 50, 60%, right? You start having this hockey stick type growth with people kind of moving over here. It has to do with the money printing. It also has to do with business leaders adopting the technology and building businesses around the technology that are simple and easier to use. And it'll just become normal. So I think this will be a very transformative year as adoption happens really quickly. And I do think it's going to be the adoption of business leaders and investors, right? Going to their executives, just like we did, and say, you've got to plumb your business this way. You've got to work this way, because the efficiency gains within the business are so massive. You will lose to the guy down the street who does adopt it. So it's going to happen. As your competitors are doing it, you're going to have to do it too. And it's just going to happen faster.
This Delta Wave solution, we're looking at like a 40% reduction in O&M management costs. 40%.
That's a big number.
It's massive. Massive. You extrapolate that over the trillions of dollars that is the oil and gas business, and this thing could be Pac-Man, So
we'd like to have you back, both of you, for a Link to Learn session where we can dive deeper into this infrastructure that you're creating for traditional businesses, because the application may be broader than just the oil and gas industry, and we should explore that a little bit more.
Certainly is. Yeah.
That would be great.
Well, thank you, Kareem. Really appreciate you having us on. It's been a great day. Really great.
Thank you.